Hey everyone, welcome back to episode 32 of Columbia City. Today we're going to be building a zoo on this peninsula park over here, which we're going to be calling Yesler Park. This name was chosen by a viewer named Eric, who noted that Henry Yesler was one of the founders of Seattle. Henry Yesler was also mayor twice and the richest person in Seattle when he was alive in the 1800s, so that name makes a lot of sense. Anyway, let's get straight into the build. This is the second time I'm recording all of this audio because all of it corrupted before, and now I have to re-record it, and that's really annoying. But it was pretty mediocre commentary before, so hopefully my commentary can be a little bit better in this portion here. So anyway, this park, once again, we're going to be calling this Yesler Park. Thanks so much for the suggestion, Eric. It's a really great suggestion, and I think the park name is pretty relevant to the Pacific Northwest, considering Henry Yesler was one of the key founders of Seattle and a very, very prominent person in the region in his time. So anyway, we're going to be building a zoo. The zoo is going to be based off of two different zoos in real life. Firstly, the zoo in Portland, which I believe is called the Oregon Zoo. It's on a hill, it's got a light rail connection, it's an awesome zoo. I would love to go to the Oregon Zoo. Just like I'd like to go to the zoo in Tacoma, Washington. I forget what it's called, but we're basing this off of that as well. And those are both on hillsides in pretty natural areas, so we don't really replicate those zoos in any way. Like you'll see, I'm starting off here, like I'm trying to go for a similar parking lot layout to the zoo in Portland, but due to the game's mechanics, it's sort of hard to do that without doing an insane amount of detailing on this curve here. So I didn't really want to do that. Instead, I'm just going off on my own tangent here. We do use those zoos as inspiration, but I mean, a lot of the time, actually, using zoos as inspiration is hard because usually they're covered in trees, so it's hard to even see down onto the ground on Google Earth. But we definitely, once again, we make do here, and we're, once again, going off on our own thing here. We use a lot of park life assets. Basically, the entire build is just park life assets, Gray Flame, Mr. Mason, and Pedelmo, foliage, and parking lot roads, and basically nothing else. Like, the entire zoo is based on, and then we also use Gray Flame's rocks, obviously. Like, really the point is we mostly just use park life assets. Like, the zoo itself is just park life assets. And yeah, you'll see I'm just trying to start off here by creating the outline for like the infrastructure of the zoo, or the infrastructure of the roads, the parking lots and stuff surrounding the zoo. That building you see that I placed, the crescent-shaped building, that's supposed to be some sort of state or local parks administration building, and it's like in the middle of this park that's a big tourist attraction, or not even just a tourist attraction, just a big attraction for residents in the city. So I figured placing that building there would be relevant, although it's a little bit out of place, so if you want me to remove it, let me know in the comments. I think it'll look better once it's detailed. We don't detail it in this video, but that'll be done in a future video. I just thought the shape of the road was pretty conducive to some sort of a roundabout building there, so I placed that. Could remove it, let me know. Another thing to note is I changed the intro a little bit. I removed that Chinatown shot that was really quick and replaced it with this new shot of the mountain, which I like a lot better. It's a lot easier to watch. I also removed the bouncing animations, which a lot of people really disliked, and I agree. I think the intro does better without them. So that's fixed. If you still have any complaints about the intro, let me know. Another thing I'm going to try to do throughout this video is make sure the music and my voice are at levels which work relative to each other, and I'm trying to get better at that. I know a lot of the time the music is too loud, whether I'm commentating or it's the music of a cinematic sequence, so I'm going to try to get better at that. Keep that in mind. Not going to be perfect, but definitely something I'm trying to improve on, and I know a lot of people have been commenting on that. And yeah, this is basically it for the portion where we're building the infrastructure, so let's start building the actual zoo itself. Another thing I wanted to mention is there are some new buses out on the workshop, and they're amazing for Columbia City, like absolutely amazing. So first of all, you've got, these buses are newly textured by DieHardHunter, so thanks so much DieHardHunter for taking the effort to retexture these with Seattle themed textures. But like, I didn't even know this was happening, and they're absolutely glorious. But the initial models, so the first one is the New Flyer Bendy bus by Ninja Noob Slayer and Outstanding Gamer. Absolutely glorious bus with a Sound Transit texture on it, thanks to DieHardHunter. So thanks to all three of those creators for what is that glorious bus. And then also, there is the Sound Transit coach bus, which we're going to be using for like highway express routes. And that also has a version with Columbia City text on the front, which you might have noticed in the intro. It's so good, and I didn't even know these were happening. But yeah, the coach bus is modeled by Dan DeKalb and Ninja Noob Slayer. And then obviously retextured by DieHardHunter. So that is glorious as well. And then there's a third and final bus, which is actually, it's a Bolt bus, which is a regional transit service in Seattle, or the Pacific Northwest rather, and I believe it operates in the Northeast from what I read, but I might be wrong on that. But yes, the Bolt bus as well, which also has a version with Columbia City text, which is just glorious. So thank you to all of those creators, so DieHardHunter for the amazing retextures, and then Ninja Noob Slayer for the initial models, and then obviously for the initial models as well, the coach bus was Ninja Noob Slayer and Dan DeKalb, and the New Flyer bus was Ninja Noob Slayer and Outstanding Gamers. So those buses are all amazing, and I can't wait to get them really running in Columbia City and have a actual bus system, which we don't really have yet. I haven't set that up really. I've got some trolley buses going, but I don't have a real bus network throughout the city. I do need to do a lot of road network expansion. I know we've been doing a lot of that recently, so I'll probably do most of that off camera if we end up doing that in future videos, so that I'm able to expand. But yeah, definitely check out those buses. I'll make sure to link those in the description of the video for you to go download. Anyway, we are, sort of continuing the zoo here. As you get to see, I'm just using park life assets. Like, that's it for the zoo. Almost completely just park life assets, and then obviously custom foliage and rocks from the workshop. But I'm just using these park life paths for the zoo paths. Like, it's not even the park path. I'm using all of the zoo specific assets from Park Life DLC. But I am adding my own flair to it. I'm making sure that I make these slopes decently reasonable, like not too steep so people can actually get up them. We're going to be using, as you can see, these elevated versions of the zoo paths to do that, and just have these sort of zigzag patterns which get people down, because once again, this is on a really steep hill. So I thought that would be necessary for what we're building here. Sorry. Definitely let me know in the comments if you have any suggestions for the areas surrounding the zoo, and just if you have anything that you'd like me to place within this big park, Yesler Park, because I want it to just be a huge recreation area for the entire city, just like Stanley Park is in Vancouver. So yeah, comments would definitely be appreciated on that front. Another thing is, if you have a name suggestion for the zoo itself, please don't be afraid to leave that in the comments. I'm going to make sure to choose a name for the zoo as we move forward, so that the zoo has a little bit more character. And the character of the zoo, one unique thing about it is it's going to be really natural. We're going to not really have too many very developed areas. It's just these paths and then the exhibits, and even like eating areas will either just be inside, so you can escape the rain of the Pacific Northwest, or you just go outside and sit on the grassy area in that courtyard between those buildings that you see on the top of the screen there. So yeah, really natural zoo, and that's the main idea for the zoo. So if that helps you with your name. But yeah, we've made the skeleton of the zoo now, so let's get into some detailing. See, a couple people wanted me to stick with the old music. That's not gonna happen. I think you're gonna get used to the new music, and for the most part, it's pretty mellow, so you're not gonna be seeing too much of a change. It's just gonna be a much larger variety of sounds. Lots of different types of rock, folk, pop, and yeah, I think you'll like it. You're not gonna get guitar riffs like the one in that segment there with the old music, so that's why we're changing it up, making it a little bit more interesting. So yeah, before we get into the detailing, I'm making this sort of aquatic exhibit here. So just keep that in mind. This aquatic exhibit is just going to be connected over a bike path that's going to go around the park. And I'm making sure that the bike path and this exhibit are totally separate, and you can't cross from one path to another because you have to actually get admission to the zoo at the front gate, or one of the two gates. But yeah, I think now's a good time to begin the Q&A segment. So if you're not aware, I'm going to be doing a Q&A segment probably every video, or at least most videos. So if you have any questions you've got for me, just leave them in the comments and tag them #Q&A just so that I know how to search for them. Anyway, we're going to start off with a question from Romer Jerome Lemery. What video editing software are you using? I am using DaVinci Resolve, which is an awesome software which basically does everything I need it to. So if you're making videos, definitely check it out. The next question is from Sir DeVos Seaworth. I recently buyed new PC which can handle playing City Skylines, and I want to start a new city. Which part of city is the easiest to build at start? I mean, I'd suggest just building the starting infrastructure for your city, just so that you're able to get a good idea of where things are going to go, so that there's at least some sort of aim to the layout of your city. That helps you make sure that you're not just expanding it willy-nilly as you go, and you have a actual idea for how your city's layout is going to look and what landmarks are going to be where, etc. It's not necessarily the easiest, it's just probably the best way to start a city. The next question is from Zachary Grigg, although a bunch of people asked this. Would you consider doing a Midwestern style city in the future, potentially based off Detroit, Chicago, Toronto, etc.? Love your content. Thanks, Zachary. But yeah, with a Midwest city, I've talked about this before, that's by far the most highly suggested type of city for me to build. I'm probably not going to be building a Midwest city just because I've been building a lot of American cities. Maybe I'll do a mini project in the Midwest. If you have any suggestions for like mini projects, just one episode, really small builds that are maybe ultra detailed, let me know in the comments. But probably not a huge Midwest city. That's really unlikely. So the next questions come from Mr. Matt. Mr. Matt has 2 questions. Try not to submit 2 questions if you can help. Like, you're going to have lots of videos to ask questions on. I want to make sure I get as many people in. But Mr. Matt had some awesome questions, so I'm going to answer both of them just this one time. First of all, Mr. Matt asks, if you had no limitations such as performance, load times, and lack of assets, what would you build, city/other? I think I'd try to build some sort of enormous, like, New York level metropolis, just something insane, but I don't think that would even fit within 25 tiles. It would take a long time to build, so I don't really know. There's a lot to be thought of there. The next question from Mr. Matt is, if you could see a concert by any band/musician, alive, dead, retired, or still touring, who would you see? So some of you might know Pink Floyd's my favorite band of all time. I'd probably want to see Pink Floyd maybe in the era right before Dark Side was released, like post-metal, or for the Animals tour, and see the sort of event that inspired The Wall, something like that. That would be cool. Either of those 2 eras of Pink Floyd would be awesome, although that's a really hard question. Like, I had to pass up saying, like, seeing the Beatles around Revolver or something there. So yeah, hard question there. Anyway, next question from Eugene Harris. Will you be building more spread out suburbs farther out of the city? Definitely. We're going to be building a huge set of suburbs. There are going to be lots of different types of suburbs. We're going to be having suburbs that are very, very planned, like a lot of suburbs in most West Coast cities. We're also going to be having a lot of suburbs that are more natural looking, like a lot of the suburbs that you'll see in suburban Portland or Seattle. So yeah, we're definitely going to have suburbs. I'm just trying to expand out from the core of the city and not start building suburbs now, and just more organically build the city, if that makes sense. The next question is from Lardo Yek. Lardo asks, what mod adds ambient occlusion? I see it on your videos. So you've got two options for that. First of all, you've got post-process FX, and you've also got Render It, which is the one that I'm currently using. Those will both be linked in the description of the video. But yeah, that's it for questions for this video. If you have any questions, once again, leave them in the comments, tagged #Q&A. Try to just submit one question and try to make your questions brief, and I'll try to be able to get, I'll be able to get to as many as possible, rather, if you do that. And yeah, I really love this segment. I'm happy we implemented this. Just trying to have a bunch of different ways that we have more interaction on the channel. We're gonna have a poll later in the video and an update on a build we did a couple of episodes ago and stuff like that, where it's very directly based off of viewer interaction like this. I think it's pretty cool. Let me know if you've got any suggestions for how we can improve viewer interaction. That would be highly appreciated. Another thing, I do cut out a lot of the part of the time-lapse here where we're detailing. It's really just mostly nature detailing. You've seen me do a lot before. There's not much else, and it dragged on for an extra 10 minutes that it really didn't need to. Basically, we're just using these gray flame rocks and a bunch of different gray flame and Mr. Mason and Padelmo trees to transition these slopes in a realistic way, and they end up looking really good. It's just it takes a long time for me to do this. Another thing I do off camera is I add fences around every single path. That took a long time. You'll see that in the overview segment later in the video though, so you're not missing out on too much. It was pretty boring placing them anyway, so yeah, let me know what you think of the zoo in the comments. Yeah, this is the second zoo I've ever made in the game. The first one was in New Windsor, and it was pretty mediocre. I really don't like it much looking back on it. I put a lot more effort into this zoo, and I think it shows, so yeah, let me know what you think. Anyway, let's hop into the final segment of the video where we work on the coastline of the zoo. So I've placed this sort of bike path here. It's going to be a path that goes all around the park. We're only placing this segment by the zoo in this episode so we could just get an idea for the shape of the rest of the park. But I'm going to place a bunch of different dirt paths throughout the park as well. Just all of the detailing I'm doing right now, consider it very preliminary. We're going to be changing it a lot as we go, because we haven't made the rest of the park yet. We have to do an entire episode just doing some of the nature work for the park. And I've got some other special builds I've got planned. Once again, if you've got any ideas for the park, leave them in the comments below. Just things I could place here. I'm planning on a lighthouse and a secret build I haven't quite announced yet. It was hinted at in the comment section of the last video, but it'll be really cool. I think you're gonna like it. Yeah, so we're working on the aquatic center here. I'm making sure to separate it from the zoo itself, so you can't go from one path to another from the path that goes around the park to the zoo. So the zoo's sort of nestled into the park, but it's surrounded by fences, and you're really not able to leave the park itself. But yeah, we're basically nearing the end of the time-lapse. Once again, there's a lot of stuff that I cut out of the time-lapse because it was really repetitive or boring. The time-lapse was getting pretty long. So yeah, You'll see all of that stuff in the overview segment at the end of the video, but this video, before that overview segment, I want to just quickly hop into a cinematic sequence and give you an update on something we built a couple of episodes ago. So you might remember this highway segment from the Old Town builds. I don't like it, and a lot of commenters didn't like it. It doesn't look natural. Like, an area like this would have had the highway sort of tossed into it, with a lot of buildings being demolished for it to be built. So I changed it to look a lot more like that, where it's just following the grid pattern, and it looks like just part of that block, or part of all of these blocks were demolished to make room for the highway. I think it looks a lot more realistic, so thanks to all of the commenters who pointed that out. I think it, yeah, once again, looks so much more realistic. Another thing I did is I added parking lots at the end of the road segments that would have continued had it not been for the highway. And we'll definitely continue the grid on the other side of the highway as well, and that'll continue to be an Old Town area. So another thing, now we're going to have a poll on whether to remove some taller buildings from Old Town, because it was pointed out that a lot of these taller buildings aren't that realistic for a Pacific Northwest Old Town. So the first option is going to be to remove those two tallest buildings from the center of the screen there. Those two old, taller buildings. The second option is going to be to remove all of the buildings that are over about 6 or 7 stories from the Old Town, so most of what you're seeing here. And the other option is to leave it be, because I agree it's a little bit unrealistic to have buildings this tall for the most part in the Old Town. Let me know what you think. The poll for that's in the top right corner of the screen, so make sure you just give me your input on that. I'd love to hear from you. So getting started with our flyover here, we're going to start from the east entrance. First of all, we've got this main entrance building here, which has a courtyard behind it. That courtyard leads us to our primate exhibit over here. I like how this courtyard looks. And then over here, up on this hill, we've got a bunch of different exhibits, once again connected to each other with these paths. And note the fences that I added off camera in between them. I've also got a little area for people to picnic, some restrooms, and a little cafe there. And then we have over here a pretty cool lion exhibit with a passageway where they're able to go from one side to another, and they actually use it, which is pretty cool. We'll take a little closer look at that later. And then we've got the west parking entrance. I don't know what we're going to call these specifically, probably just west and east. Then up here we've got this exhibit, which doesn't quite overlook the highway, but it's above the highway. You're not really able to see over to it from here. And then over here we've got the giraffe exhibit, which is connected by a bunch of different wooden pathways, lots of rocks around it. I love this place. And then once again, lots of rocks surrounding these exhibits here. I love the raptors in the cage in the bottom there. I'd love to see that exhibit. I love how the animals are like totally animated and have their own sounds in park life. It's pretty awesome. And these elephants are just vibing here up on this hillside. Then this is the coolest sort of wooden pathway feature, and there's a cliff behind it, which is pretty awesome. And then over here we've got a rhino exhibit, and then we've got the aquatic exhibit, which has got like whales and like rays and stuff like that down in the water there, which is pretty cool, and you can sort of see them down there below that whale watching boat. But yeah, I mean, this is the zoo. Hopefully you like it. I'm a huge fan of it. Also, let me know what you think of the quicker transitions throughout the flyover segment we just did, because we had sort of quicker transitions from one location to another. So I'd love to hear what you think about that in the comments down below. Still trying to refine my video style here. But anyway, we're on the ground level. These elephants are just vibing here. Look at that guy. He's totally struggling to move. That animation is... I have animations like a little bit slowed down here. So it looks a little weird. But it makes the pedestrians look a little more realistic. And the lions still look pretty realistic there. You see that lion on the pathway. Then we've got the rhinos over here. Then we've got this raptor exhibit over here. A bunch of different birds flying around, which is pretty cool. And then we've got this exhibit, which is, it's got some whales, once again some rays. I think there's some dolphins down there as well. Pretty cool. I'd love to see that exhibit. Just go on the dock there. And we've got the giraffes having fun running through bushes with no problem apparently. And look at those bison there. Those are some weird sound effects. The tourists with their hands in their pocket, whatever. Yeah, I love this so much. Like, just going on ground level here, watching the animals. Wow, these noises are so unsettling. And then there's a gorilla grooming another gorilla, which is fun to watch. Look at that. That's must have been a fun animation for whoever made that at Colossal Order. And then, yeah, that's the zoo. Hopefully you like it. If you do, make sure to leave a like. Helps out a ton. How people find the videos is the YouTube algorithm recommends it to them, and likes really help with that. So likes would be appreciated. Subscribe if you're new around the channel, and hit the bell icon next to the subscribe button to get notified whenever I upload a new video so you never miss an upload. And you could support me on Patreon to get access to Columbia City's save game and download it and go fly around in it or build in it or whatever you want to do. Get your name in the credits of the video at the end, or you could just get episodes early. Those benefits are all over on Patreon, or if you just want to support me, highly appreciated. And then you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. All of those are in the description. But yeah, hopefully you all enjoyed. That's about it for the zoo. This was a long one, but I enjoyed it. And this is the city. I love it. We're going to continue expanding it. Hopefully you're enjoying, and hopefully you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time.